Hey, we're on. Welcome back. Everybody staying warm today? Gia, you're ready. You got a scarf on and a big warm coat. Good. All right, well, today what we're going to do is finish up our persuasive speeches. And we have 4 of them today. And then subsequent to that, we'll start setting up our next speech. And of course, we are getting very close to the end of the semester here. So we really just have this week and next week. And then we have 9 days off for Thanksgiving. And then we come back for 1 week of class and then finals. So things are going to be tumbling to an end here pretty soon. But it's not over yet. We still have a little ways to go. So with that, let's get our persuasive talks going today. Kelsey, you want to open it up for us? Get that happening.
It's doing this thing again. I just opened it. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Does somebody else want to go while I'm trying to figure out this problem with my laptop?
Somebody else ready? Hunter, you ready to go?
Okay.
Okay.
I just opened it in the car too.
That's all right. About the time y'all showed up. Okay, Hunter. You're on.
Imagine working full time, sometimes even 40 hours a week, and still struggling to pay bills. That's the reality of minimum wage for Americans. Because it's only $7.50 or $7.25 per minimum wage. That's not enough to pay for basic necessities without government help. The idea behind minimum wage was to ensure a livable wage. But today's economy, that's just not, you just can't do that. Basic necessities include house, food, transport, other stuff like that. $7 an hour or $7.25 will not be able to do that. Not all of it without government help. When people can afford their essentials, they feel less financially stressed. And that helps them build their money if they're making more and not struggling as much with bills and rent. Despite that, critics say raising the labor cost would cost an overall cost of living to rise. Canceling out the benefit of higher pay. Some economy suggests instead of a universal wage increase, they expand tax credits, housing assistance, or subsidized to low-income households, or help smaller companies as well. Because the whole reason why minimum wage would hurt most companies, it would raise today's the economy value of certain things, like houses and household goods. But it's more than numbers. It's about human dignity. Everybody works for what they are needed. Adjusting the minimum wage to match the living cost is not only fair, it's fundamental, strong, and more economically bound. Any questions?
Why do you care?
Because it's very hard to live a minimum wage life.
So do you currently make minimum wage?
I do not, but I used to.
Okay, you used to, all right.
Yes.
So that's what's missing in here, is you telling us like why you care about this. I'd also say You could have a little stronger thesis. It was taking me a minute to figure out what you were trying to get at. What you're really getting at is a fair or universal minimum wage should be put in place so people can pay their bills, save for the long term, and have self-esteem. So that kind of thing is what you need up front.
Okay.
And you did bring in some critics and opposite side, and you did rebut them. I think that was good. But at the end, it gets to the call to action. Like, what do you want us to do about it? Like, even if we agree, what do we do? If we're a business owner, do we pay more? Do we just contact our legislators at state and federal level and advocate for a higher wage? So at the end of a persuasive essay or persuasive speech, you have to tell us what to do. What do you want us to do?
I mean, to help, you could donate to causes that could raise more money for those, like tax legislator and stuff like that, so they can help out more.
Okay, so
Like
you're
different, or, cause there's different, what are those called?
charities.
Yeah, charities, thank you.
Okay, so your admonition to us then is to donate to charities to help people out who aren't making enough money,
Yeah.
basically. Okay. And then we can decide whether we want to do that or not.
Yes. Cause you know, I can't force you.
Right. I'll kind of let that roll on then. Okay, anybody else have any questions for Hunter? All right, well, let's give him a hand. Hand in there. There we go. Okay, Kelsey, did you get your system together yet? Caden, are you up there with something to say to us yet?
I'm ready.
David, you're ready. Which one?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Well, let's let him get up there since he's so excited about it. Love the enthusiasm. You're at week 13.
All right. Hello, everyone. Cell phones affect our lives in many ways. Phones were made to help us stay connected, but honestly, they're making us less social. We're always online and we don't really talk to each other like we used to. Smartphones make it look like we're more social. We can text, send pictures, post pictures, send a snap, like people's posts, but it isn't the same as actually hanging out or talking face to face. According to Financial Times, people spend way less time talking in person than they used to, especially teenagers. We might be connected through screens, but in real life, a lot of us may feel alone. Because we're always on our phone, people are starting to lose basic social skills. We text instead of talk, and sometimes even avoid people because we don't know what to say. Psychologists say that too much phone use is linked to social anxiety and loneliness. It's easier to hide behind a screen than to have a real conversation. But when we stop talking face to face, we lose confidence and real communication gets awkward. I'm not saying smartphones are the worst thing ever, because I use mine every day, multiple times a day. They help us talk to people who live far away, and they're super useful. But the problem is how we use them. When we use our phones more than we talk to people, that's when they start to make us less social. According to Science Daily, people who use social media felt less lonely and depressed. So yeah, smartphones are making us less social. They make it easy to connect online, but they also make it easy to ignore people right in front of us. Next time you're with friends or family, try putting the phone down for a little. Are there any questions?
Yeah, tell me your thesis again.
The last part?
Just whatever it is.
So yeah, smartphones are making us less social, and they make it easy to connect online.
Okay. I like that you brought in some authorities. Now, your opposite side is really they can be beneficial to us in
Yeah.
certain ways. And obviously, in some cases, we can't even operate without them.
Yeah,
So sometimes you can't even sign onto a computer unless you have your phone, so you can get a text to get the code to put it back in. So myself, I don't like bringing my phone to class, but I
Yeah.
have to in order to get in the computer. So I thought that overall this is structured pretty well. I like your volume up there. You're a little swayy. You're like right now, you're kind of bouncing
Yeah.
back and forth. Okay, so stay in one place. Move your hands a little bit. You're kind of grabbing them and holding on to them, wringing them a little bit. So if you can get rid of the wringing hands and the swaying, you'll be a lot stronger. I thought you did a lot better on talking instead of reading.
Okay.
So you'd obviously practice this a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
So you talk to us more. And so I thought that was good. Are you familiar with the 8-minute morning rule? You ever heard this? So what science is showing is that if you'll give yourself 8 minutes when you wake up before you look at your phone, it'll impact your whole day. Because if you, first thing you do when you wake up, pull your phone out and look at it,
Yeah.
then you put your brain into fight or flight mode, basically. It's like, okay, now there's things happening. I need to, whereas if you'll wake up, take some time, set your intentions, get some sunlight in your eyes. I always say put sunlight in your eyes before you look at the phone.
Yeah.
And get up, move around a little bit, then get your phone and look at it, okay. But 8 minutes is what you're supposed to give yourself. It's
Okay.
something I've learned recently.
All right.
So I've been trying it, and it makes a little difference, I think.
Does it?
Yeah.
All right.
Might try it. Okay, so aside from that, we're stuck with our phones.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna tell us to do? What course of action should we take? You mentioned, so next time put your phone down, but,
You go for a walk.
okay, so get outside.
Yeah.
Do you know what a cyborg is? You ever heard the term?
Mm-mm.
Cyborg is part human, part machine. So the
It's our
argument
phone.
is now that we are part machine. We're cyborgs because
Yeah.
we can't live without our phones. Gotta take them everywhere. They help
Yeah.
us in all our decisions. So. Is there a safe amount of phone use each day?
I wouldn't think so.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm. I mean, you don't want to be on it like
4
too
hours,
much,
6
but
hours?
like, yeah.
Okay, you know the dual palm trick? I'm taking a little extra time here because we only have 4 speakers today. See, what you're supposed to do after you've looked at your phone or anything for like 45, 50 minutes, then you take your palms and you just put them over your eyes and make it all dark in there. And that way your eyes can reset. You do it for 20 seconds.
All right.
It's like recharging yourself.
I've never
Because
heard
your
of that.
eyes are constantly taking in light and information,
Yeah.
which is challenging your brain, and you use a lot of brain power just seeing.
Yeah.
So if you'll just cover your eyes for 20 seconds, then when you take your hands off, you'll be renewed. And then, okay, you can go look, you can scroll TikTok.
I'll have to try that one
Another
too.
hour or so after that. So, okay, some minor tangents for you here this morning. Let's give Caden a hand. So we missed our call to action there, but aside from that, it was pretty good. Well, Kelsey,
I got it.
you got it together? All right,
We
finally.
have the files, but I eventually can.
Put my glasses back on too. See.
Too many students are losing their chance at higher education because financial aid is both difficult to navigate and limited to those who meet narrow, unrealistic eligibility standards. Hi, my name is Kelsey, and today I want to talk about why financial aid should be easier to access for college students. Financial aid is money provided to help students pay for tuition, books, housing, and other college costs. It typically comes from 4 sources: the federal or state government, colleges or universities, and private organizations. It can include grants, scholarships, loans, or work-study programs. We all know that college can be expensive and it's only getting more costly. For many families, financial aid is the key to making higher education possible, but the current system does not help everyone equally. Financial aid should be simpler and more inclusive so that no student is denied an education because of confusing paperwork or unfair eligibility rules. As both a college student and someone who works in the admissions office here at Rogers State, I can see firsthand how many students struggle to understand and access the aid that they will need. Today, I'll cover 3 main points: how the financial aid system discourages qualified students, how simplifying eligibility and applications increases equity and enrollment, and how some practical reforms could make real improvements. Number 1, the problem is the barriers in the current system. Our financial aid system is full of unnecessary obstacles. Complicated forms like FAFSA take up time and energy and often leave students more confused than when they started. According to Gallup News, about 25% of adult students struggle when trying to fill out these forms. That is 1 in 4 students. And many students are denied aid because of strict income requirements that do not consider their personal circumstances. For example, a student might not gain any help from their parents whatsoever, but since it only counts income, that's what they'll go off of. These barriers turn away first-generation students, and they get to miss opportunities, and then they oftentimes end up with more debt. The solution would be to simplify the process. Simplifying financial aid applications and eligibility rules would open the door for so many more students to attend college. When students are denied or delayed access in getting that aid, many will postpone or even abandon their college plans. Families with fewer resources often struggle to navigate the forms and verification steps. According to a Brookings article titled "Improving College Access Through Financial Aid Transparency and FAFSA Simplification," the verification process can take so long that students will end up losing the aid or they'll drop out altogether. Making this process faster, clearer, and more accessible would give thousands of students a fair chance. Some practical reforms that could really help this problem would be to simplify the FAFSA form and get rid of any unnecessary questions that they have on there. Use existing IRS tax data automatically, saving families time and also avoiding mistakes. They can expand the eligibility criteria to see the entire family's circumstance and not just based on income alone. We could have support for part-time and non-traditional students to get the help that they would need, and we could also add outreach programs to high schools in order to allow families and students to understand how to apply before it's too late to do so. These small steps can make huge differences in people's lives. Now, some critics will worry about simplifying the system. It could lead to fraud, overspending, and errors if aid becomes too easy to access. They argue that automatic IRS data might not reflect the full financial picture, and that looser eligibility rules could cost taxpayers more. But the truth is, the real problem is access, not abuse. For every case of misuse, there are thousands of qualified students who never get the help that they need simply because the system is too confusing and intimidating. The benefits of reform far outweigh the risks. By simplifying the financial aid, we can help more students achieve the education that they deserve. Think about the student who gave up on college because they couldn't figure out the paperwork or missed a deadline by a few days. That student could have been sitting right next to you, or it could have been you. Making financial aid easier to access is not just about policy change. It's a commitment to opportunity. I believe it's time we make that commitment. Any questions?
You say we make the commitment. What do you want us to do?
I'm sure people could work together to get this out there to people who actually have the ability to make a change. Like if you start a committee or a poll or start taking a petition? If you could get so many people to sign that, or so many people who actually care about this, I'm sure that could make a big difference and reach the people who actually have the power to affect the financial aid system.
Okay, so you're really asking us to organize and then contact our representatives and see if they can make a difference. I thought this was really good, Kelsey, all the way around. I thought you outlined it well. You had a good introduction, explained what's at stake. Your personal investment is very good because you're coming from a student point of view as well as admissions office point of view. I thought you organized your points well. one thing I would like to see you do differently in the future is when you mention critics and they, who?
Okay.
And we've had this a couple other times where you bring up that opposite side and you say critics say or they say, but who are they? What's the source for that?
Okay.
Just as important as the sources for your points of view, we want to have a real source for the opposite point of view. I also like the phrase that you said, and I don't know if I got it all right, small steps can lead to big changes. I thought that was really a good line. And that line could come back to help you in the future when you're trying to convince people of something. Just making a little choice here or there can ultimately make a big difference. So I think you should hold on to that line. Otherwise, I thought you had good volume up there. I liked how you were using your hands. You weren't moving them too much, and you were talking way more than you were reading. So just really solid all the way around. Let's give Kelsey a hand. I guess the only other thing I would say in the future is make sure you have your technology together.
I don't know what's going on with it. It just started doing this past week, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, David, tell us about why you think I should not be driving anymore.
Okay. Alright. I work with old people, and, I see them all the time. And, I'm scared that some of these people drive. It really terrifies me. So, my point here is, why should senior citizens take cognitive tests every so often to drive after retirement? So, after the National Institute of Health proved that people at the age of mid-40s start losing their cognitive, functions and stuff. Same with reaction times. And at the age of 75 is just like a very steep decline too. So I feel like they should be taking tests at 65, which is retirement age, then 75, then age of 80, and now more often. So at 82, and then 85, and then after 85, they should be taking a test every single year. I get this point proven to me every single day, and I laugh about it every time. Because I'm driving, and I go see who's the driver driving like crazy, or who they don't look like they know what they're doing. And it just proves my point every time. I can't help but laugh about it. And this, why am I saying this? Because of public safety. I feel like, there's teenagers that drink and drive and all this stuff, but I feel like we could reduce some accidents and unnecessary harm by, retiring people for good.
That sounds so extreme. Hiring people for good.
I forgot her name. I'm horrible with names, but she said that.
Alyssa?
Yes, she was like, "Well, what if they can't afford like a taxi or something?" And I was like, "Well, we could use a government funding. We're sending money over to different countries, and then we could use that money instead to help our senior citizens in many ways too." Well, my call to action for you guys is to check on your grandparents and get them off the road if you need to. Help them out. Any questions?
Where are you driving every day where you're seeing old people all over the road?
Owasso. There's so many people retired people in there.
So
It's everywhere.
on the highway or downtown? Or
No, just in town.
just in town? Okay.
No, I get it's like slow enough so I can see their faces and really analyze the age and stuff. I can tell you, I see too many people driving that should not be driving. Any other questions?
So your primary call to action for us is get our grandparents off the road?
Well, yeah, it starts at the home.
Okay. All right, anybody else have anything else?
No.
Okay, well, let's Let's give him a hand then. You escaped. I'm going easy on you. Okay, we still have some time left. Good, we can start talking about our next one. I'll hand those out to you here in a little bit. Whew, we made it through the persuasive speeches and nobody got mad. There were no throwdowns. Nobody reported me to the authorities for being too whatever.
Oh,
Oops. I dropped my microphone and my phone. There we go. Okay, Radar, I know you can't hear me, so I'm working on it here. I had some speeches lined up here. We're just going to talk a little bit and get ready for the next one. Put that in there for now. What I liked about the persuasive speeches is we got to see what you all are thinking about, what's important to you, what's impacting your daily lives. And I think that's a hallmark of the educational environment, is you should be exploring things that are important to you and learning things that are applicable to what you're going to be doing in your life. Nobody was really that controversial in here. I thought everybody had a pretty solid foundation for what you were going to argue, and you had specific interests in what you were arguing. Some were more structured than others, some had more backup data than others, but I thought that they all came from a sincere place. And I think that that's a key thing in our educational environment, is trying to stay sincere without attacking somebody else for whatever it is they think or they believe. And so I was happy that we were able to get through all that. I think everyone has improved a lot so far in the semester because we've had several speeches now, and not to pick on anybody or another, but everybody has improved. You're either using your hands more. We heard hardly any ums today, maybe one or two in the responses, responses to questions. And so that's something that I really pay close attention to, because at the beginning of the semester, on every one of you, I was able to check off multiple ums, and they have all but been eradicated. The trick is, when you're not on your speech message and you're responding to questions, if the first thing that you say is it sounds like that you don't really have a good answer, that you're trying to figure something out. So in that situation, let the silence exist, think about your answer, and let it go. Aside from that, I don't really have too much to say anymore, because we've talked about a lot of these things already that we've been working on. I think you're all doing a good job. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is talk about an important person in your life and how they have inspired you. And of course, you'll need an image of that person. And I don't have a handout today, but we'll do that in more detail on Wednesday. So for those of you that are watching at home, because I know when you're not here in class, everybody watches the online or on television version of the class. So those people who are at home or wherever you are watching that, you'll know on Wednesday that everyone will do a very brief, here's who I'm going to talk about. It'd be nice if you had an image to show us. And I'm not going to try to build a whole PowerPoint, or most people will just bring their phones in and put an image of the important person on their phone. And let's see if I can find one fast enough. Here, I'll put this up here. Let me have the desk camera, if you would, there, Radar. Got it going? Almost. Desk cam, there we go. There's Mom. My mom went and saw her yesterday. So if I were going to talk about inspiring person to me, I'd bring up my mom. She's 84 now and has all the issues that an 84-year-old person has, which your body starts to break down, similar to what David was saying. So when I go see my mom, she's sometimes not in the best mood because she's got physical afflictions because of her age, and when she came up through the system, they didn't treat people the same way they do now with regard to medicine. So she had a major back issue back in the 70s, and if you look at her x-ray of her back, there's like all these bolts and pieces of metal in it and all this other stuff that's in there that causes her issues today, but they don't want to take it out because she's 84. And it looks like a erector set or a construction set is like in her back. So I think about her when I'm complaining in the morning, when I'm like not feeling like, oh, I don't want to go to school today. I'd much rather stay here in my nice cozy environment. Or if I'm having any kind of pain or difficulty, I realize, well, it's not as bad as my mom's, you know, she's having trouble getting around. So I set that up because, you know, your mom, if you get to spend your life around them, you're lucky, and they're the person who's been there the whole time you've been alive. So you've known them the longest outside of your dad, if you're lucky enough to know both of those and grow up with them. So my mother came up in a different time. So she was born in 1940. And so in the 1950s and early 60s, if you were a woman, you got married, period. And if you got married, you stayed married, whether it was a happy marriage or not a happy marriage, because of the social implications of that. If you have children, you want them to have a mom and dad. And that was up until the early 60s. Well, in the mid-1960s, as society started to change, women said, well, if I'm in an unhappy marriage, I'm out of here. And so that's what my mom did, was in an unhappy situation, so she's out of there. Well, it brings up other social concerns, but by the time she was about 32, she was divorced and had 5 children, and I was the oldest of the 5. So I was the one that got to watch everything that happened to her. And so I watched her work 2 jobs all day and then work at night and on the weekends so she could provide enough. And there was really never enough for 5 kids and 1 mom, right? So contemporarily, I'm inspired by, and have been my whole life, I've always worked extra jobs because my mom did when I was young, to make everything go. And she was primarily a secretary, a legal secretary for an attorney, and then at night she was a waitress, so she could have extra money. So that always inspired me to take an extra job if you need it. And then she got us all raised and out of high school. We all graduated. We were all able to go off and do our thing. And we survived, basically. And so my mom's very inspirational to me as a person that's very close to me. And I think when she does pass, it'll be traumatic for me. I'll be checking out for a little while. But I'm still inspired by her, and I went to see her yesterday, and I'm inspired by the way she talks, because she speaks in an older Oklahoma English is the only way I know how to say it. So she says words like we don't say them anymore. And I like that. I just like her accent. And I like that because my accent got wiped away because I went to military broadcasting school. And in military broadcasting school, they want you to sound like a generic Midwestern American, so that when you're anywhere in the world, you're A, understandable, but B, you don't have a regionalism. And so it changed the way I talk forever. Every now and then I can drop into my Oklahoma accent of my youth, but it's hard to do because I got it trained out of me. Well, of course, she never had that. So she talks like she has always spoken. And so it's comforting to hear her say words in ways that I would never say them. So when we're picking someone to talk about, it can be your mom. That's completely fine. But we also run into other people in our lives who make important impacts on us. So it might be a coach of some type. You played a sport, they had an impact on you. It might have been a particular teacher that you had somewhere throughout your educational experience that changed your life. And my own background, my high school counselor would not let me out of typing. For some reason, I thought I wanted to be in there, and then I got into typing, and it was all girls except one other guy who became my best friend. And not only that, but it seemed uncomfortable. So when we learned to type, they didn't have any letters on the keys. They were blank keys. And there was a chart up on the wall, and there was a book that you learn to touch type from, meaning you don't look at what you're doing, you just type like that. If you have a question about the keyboard, you look up and look at the chart. So my counselor, Mrs. Allen, Peggy Allen, Muskogee High School, when I went in there, I said, I don't want to be in typing. And she said, you have to stay in typing, because someday you're going to go to college and you're going to need it. And I said, well, my mom's a secretary, she can type. And she said, you're not taking your mom with you to college. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right about that. Okay, I'll stay in there. So little did I know that I would become, at that point, a military broadcaster and have to write a lot. Nor did I know that after the military and working for a year, I decided I wanted to start going to college, which I did at age 22. So I didn't start college till I was 22. But by that point, I'd already been around the world. I'd worked full time. I'd had this whole life experience. And so the one thing I was uncomfortable with at that time was my ability to speak correctly. I had this training of how to use my voice and diction correctly, but I did not have the confidence of the language, of the grammar. I knew I was smart. I'd get to the end of some long-winded statement, and I would then become self-conscious about my grammar. And at this time I was in New York, and a lot of people in New York, young people go to college there first, then they get their experience. Whereas I'd gotten all this experience, but hadn't really had a higher education. So I realized I had an epiphany, I needed to go to college, so I started going to college, and I thought about Miss Allen when I was there, because next thing you know, you got to type stuff on a typewriter. We didn't have word processors yet, or computers, or any of that stuff. So I was right. Not only that, but I became a journalist. I worked for NBC News, and I was writing all the time. And then when I got into my master's program and PhD program, you're really writing a lot. And then you have to write a book-length manuscript of original research for a PhD, writing a lot. Around the middle 90s, email comes into play. Now we're writing even more because we're sending emails all the time. And we're writing long essays and whatever else it is that we're writing. So that one decision back when I was in high school made a tremendous impact on my whole career. And so now I can sit down, and when I write fast, because I learned how when I was 16 or something like that. So I could do talk about Miss Allen and how a high school counselor made a big difference in my career and my background. You might also think of inspirational people that aren't your parents, and they aren't a teacher. They're just someone you admire because of how they lived their life and what they did. I'd like to mention the name Dr. David Tate, who's deceased now. He was a history professor here. And Dr. Tate, it'd be better if I showed you pictures of all these people, but Dr. Tate and I rode back and forth because I live in Stillwater. Okay? That's about 90 miles from here. It's about an hour and a half to get there, hour and a half to get back. So he also lived in Stillwater, and we commuted together regularly, many, many, many times. Had lots of good long conversations. He was about 8 to 10 years older than I am, so he's kind of like an older brother figure. Also well-educated. And when you are well-educated, it's nice to be around other well-educated people because you have higher level conversations. And I'll tell you this, and I've said it many times, I don't know if I've said it in this class too much, but sometimes education can be ostracizing to you. It can make you feel like an outsider. Even going to college for a couple of years, you go home for Thanksgiving and your relatives are saying all kinds of dumb stuff that you want to check them on, but you don't want to cause any problems. But you've learned things while you're at college. And you'll start to feel like a little bit of an outsider sometimes. The trick is, just because you have an opinion about something doesn't mean you have to give it. You can keep it in your head. There's something known as being content in your correctness. Okay. Aside from all that, Dr. Tate and I, he taught history in the history department. And he was also a minister. And he was a member of the Orthodox Church, which is the Greek Orthodox. That's the oldest Christian sect, is the Greek Orthodox. So Dr. Tate had a couple of volunteer missions, and one of the things he did was missioned to men in a halfway house camp for sexual abusers. Now, we tend to think of people who commit sexual abuse as some of the very worst criminals in the planet that deserve whatever retribution or punishment that they get. I have no disagreement with that whatsoever. However, David Tate, Dr. Tate, felt it was so important to minister to these men, but exactly because of this reason, that nobody was beneath saving. No one was beneath helping. And so he went once a month to do a sermon for them at this remote place where only the men could live in this particular area. It was like a trailer park area. Across the street from that was a building, kind of an administrative building, and on Thanksgiving, I was thinking about this time of year because they had a Thanksgiving dinner. But the families, so women and children, can't go into the trailer park area. They have to stay over here across the highway in this administrative building. The men can come across and have a Thanksgiving meal, but after that, they have to go back, and the families can't go there. So David Tate his wife had prepared some stuff, and he was going to this meal, and he was very excited about it. Well, the Greek Orthodox still wear long black priest frocks that you might have seen in history. It's like a long, almost gown, goes to the head to toe, and they're black. And all he had almost like a little white collar that they wear. So after the service, they were walking across the highway to take the food over there, and he had food in his hands. And a young kid, driver, he was barely 17 years old, not on his phone, that was proven later, didn't see him because it was right at dusk, just getting dark as it is now. You know, it's dark 5:30, 5:45 now. He was in all black, kid didn't see him, popped him, killed him on the spot. No suffering, he was dead. And I only say that finally because that's what it was. So then I had to learn the next day about this from his wife, and it really upset me, and this is 11 years ago now, maybe 12. But here was a guy who ultimately died not as a result of anything that he did or didn't do. It was an accident. But what inspires me about David Tate was his constant quest for knowledge, his constant desire to be a better teacher, but it was also having pity on and having a heart for what we consider the lowest of our society. The lowest are sexual abusers. And so I'm inspired by him. Still yet today. I have a little picture of him in my office with his obituary. So you get into that level of inspiration. And there are other people I could talk about. We have about 5 minutes left here, so I want to round this out. But on Wednesday, what I want you to do is come in, and you don't have to do the whole full-blown speech or anything, but I want you to tell us who the person is. Hopefully you'll at least have an image on your phone that you can show us. And then just tell us a little bit about why they're important to you. And then if you can, think about some difficulty they overcame, some issue that they survived, something that they learned from and it made them better, some challenge that they had that they were able to get through, and on the other side of it, they understood something new about themselves, and that helped you. So as we go through this, and then these will happen next Monday and Wednesday. And then that's it till Thanksgiving, right? That's how it all works. And then we come back after that, we just do our impromptu speeches, or we're set up for the final. We got to figure out that last 3 class periods. We may have a rollover from these inspirational people speeches, but we want to set you up for the final. I'll go ahead and tell you, we have to have a final in here. It's university rules. We have to meet on the final exam day here in class. And all you will do is an impromptu speech. I bring some pieces of paper, I put them up here on the table, and you come up and you just pick a piece of paper, and there will be a prompt on there, and then you'll do your short impromptu speech on that subject. You can put the piece of paper back once and get a different one. So if you don't like it, you can pick something else, but only once. And then once that thing has been taken, it's off the table, and people have to do the other topics. So that's what's coming up here pretty soon. And it gets into the idea of a commemorative speech. And why do I do this? Because at some point in your life, you're going to have to talk about somebody else. You might be the best man or best woman at a wedding. You're asked to speak about them. You might have to eulogize somebody someday at a funeral. And you're all young now, we've all most likely had a funeral experience. There's always somebody who has to get up and talk about the person. You may be in a celebratory environment where you have an opportunity to celebrate somebody that's getting an award. So you want to be able to talk about them. They're really praise speeches in a lot of ways, but they should also inspire us so that when you're hearing about it, it makes you think, that inspires me too. I like the way that person got over that particular challenge in their life. And so it makes me feel better about what I'm trying to do. You want to heighten the admiration and appreciation for this person. You know, if there's only a couple minutes left, I could bring up a lot of people from my life who made a difference to me. My high school my basic training Army drill instructor, I still remember him, Sergeant Seipel, Larry Seipel. I thought he was the meanest person I'd ever seen on the planet because of the way he carried himself, the way he told us what to do, his just whole thing. But by the end of it, I realized he really cared about us. Sergeant Seipel. Now I think about him sometimes. Now, especially if you grew up like I did without a father in the home or an undependable father in the home, you hit a strong male role model and all of a sudden you have a whole new understanding of what it means to be a male. And so maybe you have some history in that perspective, male or female, that you've run into. And I've worked for some bosses that I really liked, who really had an impact on my life. I also worked for some bosses I really did not like and knew what I didn't want to do and how I didn't want to be. And sometimes those lessons are important as well, but I'd rather you do something inspirational than talking about somebody who's negative. So what you want to try and do is get to the essence of your subject. And I'll have an outline for you on Wednesday that'll help you out a little bit. But can you get to the core of who that person was? You know, my mom raised 5 on her own. We all get out of it. We all survive. We're all doing pretty well now. My friend David Tate, it was just one thing. You know, he lost his life because he volunteered to go help the lowest dregs of our society. So that inspires me too. The idea of helping people, because I think that that's one of our key things. It's my personal philosophy. I think we're here to help each other. Perhaps that's why I'm a teacher. So with that, think about this person, get an image of them. All I want is just a basic intro on Wednesday. So everybody will come up and talk about them. And then we'll do the speeches next Monday and Wednesday. Okay? All right, good. We'll see y'all next week.